to the Astro Study Room. We missed you so much. I'm Ember Faye, your friendly neighborhood fire fairy witch.
And I'm Jordan, a practicing astrologer and forever student. To talk a bit about what this podcast is for new people, because we're all new here, our goal for this podcast is to feel like we're all just students meeting up after class to go over our notes together. So, welcome to the Astro Study Room. Every other Tuesday, we will be exploring core astrology topics, breaking them down, and just chatting about how these concepts show up in our real lives and reflecting on the deep transformational wisdom that the stars have to share with us. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope you will consider subscribing and leaving us a review to help us grow this little cohort of astrology students.
Yes. Okay, so you've landed yourself in episode 2 of our podcast. So if you're interested
Whoop, whoop.
in starting from the beginning, yeah, whoop whoop, go check out our first episode and our content on our free Patreon. If you haven't checked out our free Patreon yet, sign up and you'll get access to our study guides, rituals, and more.
Yeah, I'm just really excited about this Patreon. Our big goal with this podcast is to keep things as accessible as possible to make sure that everybody can learn the ancient art of astrology. So we hope we will see you over there and we can grow a little group of students together. Last episode, we had talked about this episode was supposed to be about planets, but we were going over the script and quickly realized that each planet deserves more time. So today we are actually just going to be chatting about the luminaries, aka the sun and the moon.
Yeah, surprise. So yeah, we talked a bit about that, Jordan. We were just like, we're still trying to figure out how to break up the planets here. We just have so much to say, but we also don't want to spend 10 months just like covering the planets.
But we
So
could.
we could absolutely. So I guess you could always comment on that and like what you guys would like to see, but I don't know, we'll come up with an agenda for y'all and get that together. But yes,
A little
so
syllabus.
oh yeah, like a syllabus, love it. Hello, everyone. This is Ember Faye coming to you from the future. So, Jordan and I, as we've said to you, are pretty new at this podcasting. And so we had written out an entire episode for you that included the sun, the moon, the rising signs, and we were so pumped about it. So pumped that this episode actually went way longer than we expected, just talking about the sun. So, in order to be able to really do these luminaries some justice, we decided to split up the sun and the moon episode, which means at the beginning of this episode, you'll actually hear a lot of us talking about like the sun and the moon and how we're getting into that in this episode. We actually will not be. We'll be just talking about the sun. So get excited, feel the fire, and stay tuned for our moon episode, which will drop in 2 weeks from whenever you're listening to this episode. Jordan, when is that?
Oh gosh, July 8th.
July 8th. Stay tuned July 8th for our moon episode. We love you, star students. Enjoy this episode. So it just seems that anyone starting with astrology does know maybe what their sun sign is, and maybe you know about your moon and your rising sign. We do love the planets, but diving into the sun and the moon just really seems like a really good place to start out. And when we realized how much there was to say, that's when we decided, okay, like sun and moon need their own episode.
Yeah. Sun and chart ruler in my 8th house, I can't do things lightly. I have to dive deep into the information. So there was no like skimming off the top. Like we both spent hours just like researching stuff and it was fun, but we were not going to be able to fit all 10 planets in one episode. I don't know how people do it.
Absolutely not. It would have been so superficial. And I think that is not our goal. So we hope that you can really learn a little bit more about these luminaries.
Yeah, and we've also talked about we're kind of calling them like other sodes. So we're kind of thinking that so we're having 2 episodes a month. So one episode a month will be a bit more going over our notes, and then the next episode will kind of be like a coffee date where we're chatting about our feelings of astrology, maybe like complaining about the teachers kind of thing, like whatever feels right at that time.
Complaining about the teachers. Yes. So please let us know in the comments how we're doing. like, I don't know, what do they say? Like, subscribe, like if you'd like to join us, but really give us feedback on how we can help you learn, if there's things you'd like to see or things we could do differently, resources you may want to see. So as a reminder, Jordan and I are both students ourselves, so we definitely don't know everything, and we'll be really upfront about that. We are learning together in this little astro study room, which is why it's so special to us.
Yeah, so buckle up, star students, because class is officially out and the study room is in session. All right, welcome to our current astro weather segment. We're still figuring out how far in advance or how deep we want to go into these astro weather segments. I don't know if you all are interested in hearing short-term transits or only long-term transits. So far, we've kind of focused on long-term transits, but let us know what feels right. So a few things happening right now. The morning this episode airs, there will be a Jupiter cazimi. Cazimi is when a planet is in an exact conjunction to the sun. And typically, we don't like to see planets get too close to the sun. But when they do come together at that exact point, it's like epic powers being unlocked. So for Jupiter, which we talked about last time, is the great benefic in astrology. For Jupiter, this would be a great time for abundance work, studying, or maybe some kind of travel.
Kazemi is a crazy word. I love it.
Rolls off the
I just
tongue.
love,
It's
I've
fun.
never heard it before until you until you said it here. Does it happen? So it's any planet, right? So any planet can have a Kazemi. Does it
Yeah,
have
I
Kazemi?
think yeah, Kazemi. I think it's possible that the modern planets, maybe we don't consider them as a Kazemi because they move so slow. Well, I guess the sun's still moving. I think so. I think
Okay.
you can say anything's a Kazemi with the sun.
Okay. And out of curiosity, like how does that, would you then look at like where that Kazemi is happening in your chart? And then like that would just basically decide that like this is like extra amplified here.
So a Kazemi is not only extra amplified, but like extra amazing. Like it's extra beneficial.
Okay, so
Um,
like it's good. Like it's
yeah, yeah.
okay.
By transit, like, yeah, you're just looking at where it is in your chart, most especially if it's actually activating anything in your chart. Natally, the most common one you'll see is a Mercury Cazimi, and that can imply special psychic powers.
Oh,
Yeah.
psychic powers unlocked. Okay. And yes, we wanted to talk about the moon as well, because we have the new moon in Cancer happening on June 25th, which,
Tomorrow.
yeah, it will be tomorrow, officially at 6:31 Eastern Standard Time. And new moons, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on when we get into the moon. But new moons, as you know, are just a time to set intentions, plant seeds, clear, cleanse, whatever is going to nourish you over the next 2 weeks as the moon begins her rebirth. So Cancer happens to be my sun sign in the 10th house. So I just, happen to vibe with this transit, and the moon rules Cancer, which I just personally embrace and love, and makes Cancer this like super intuitive, in tune with your gut feeling vibe. So what does this mean? Like, how can we embrace this transit? So Cancer is all about the home life, emotions, how you're feeling. And then when we think about the new moon, essentially you're can sort of create intention setting around the home. Maybe it's a good night to cozy up with your blanket, a pet, a partner, a friend, light some candles, do some self-care, soak in a bath. Like Cancer is a water sign. I don't know. Do you have a bathtub, Jordan? Do you take baths?
At my old apartment where I just moved from, I had a jacuzzi tub, but the
Oh,
tubs here are pretty small.
I do love a bath. I love baths, just like sitting and soaking in them. But yeah, just getting in touch with some of like the feelsy feels that you may have, or that maybe you've just not had time for or been avoiding. And if you're aware of like the house that you have Cancer in, you can focus these intentions on a specific area. So kind of what Jordan was talking about, what's being activated there. So for example, like I mentioned, Cancer in my 10th house of career, ambition, I may want to like ponder on how can I create some emotional safety over the next 2 weeks to grow in my workspace. Maybe how can I create around work or some new endeavors like, burlesque dancing or as a podcaster. So this may be something for you if you're familiar with the houses already, but if you're not familiar with the houses, then really just focus more on what I said earlier about embracing those full-on Cancer cozy vibes. And also, if you check out the Patreon, I will be posting, or I have posted already, a cute little new moon in Cancer ritual for you all.
Oh my God, I can't wait. And then when it comes to the moon cycles in the zodiacs, we can also look at them as 6-month cycles. So on January 3rd of 2026, the full moon will be in Cancer, and that will be a time of celebrating and releasing everything that you set the intentions for this new moon. So visualize and manifest what you want to bring during this new moon in Cancer by the time the full moon in Cancer comes about.
Yeah, I really love that. Oh my gosh, I never really think about it that way, but I really like that.
Yeah.
Usually I think it in like a year cycle, like what do I want like at the next new moon, but I love that like
Yeah.
full on cycle. The moon's all about cycling.
Aren't we all?
We're going to talk a lot about cycling, y'all.
Because it's the moon. You just can't. I mean, it's astrology. Astrology and especially the moon. The moon cycles so quickly. What else is going on? Saturn and Neptune are still conjunct in Aries, which can bring feelings of disillusionment or a need to hold yourself or your spirituality to a higher standard or starting a new spirituality. I've heard people talking about we're probably going to see like a new age movement. Pluto will be sextiling soon, and Pluto really wants you to, or I think Pluto is already sextiling. Pluto wants you to dig deeper and really discover what is going on in this universe and really put your faith through the ringer. So this can have moments of feeling lost and feeling like a losing your religion type feeling, but Pluto is supporting you in like journeying through that and coming out on the other side stronger. And Saturn is in its fall, which we don't love to see, but when you work through Saturn's challenges, you're supposedly going to come out the other side wiser, and that's cool, I guess.
Yeah, I really like that. So like Saturn transitioning in my seventh house. So my seventh house, is Aries. I think seventh house about like intimate relationships, commitment, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm definitely a super people pleaser. So this could be a good time to like how to set those boundaries, I think, in those relationships and trying to like learn and grow through those things could be, I don't know, interesting. And like, how can I maintain my own integrity while, still being like balancing with like kindness and authenticity? I don't know. This is going to be an interesting time. I also have my Black Moon Lilith in this house at 0 degrees, which I know is like Black Moon Lilith. We'll get into maybe that at a different time, but basically all about the taboo, repressed things outside of the societal norm. It'll be interesting how Saturn will impact that. And also like Neptune there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't
While we're
know.
talking about Saturn too, you can look at the houses that Saturn rules in your house and how that connects to the house that Saturn's in now. So, Ember, you have Saturn rules your fourth and fifth house. So, how do close one-on-one long-term relationships work with your fourth house of home and family and your fifth house of fun, hobbies, and joy? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. We absolutely love to see it. And we'll be sextiling Mars in Virgo, or is. We're recording this like almost a month in advance, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be saying is or will be. But there will be a sextile to Mars in Virgo. This transit will be occurring by degree until about mid-July. Jupiter loves to be in Cancer, like we talked about. This is a time for deep connections. Depending on how this is activated in your own chart, this could also be a very fertile time. This could be a time to expand on your home, growing your savings, expanding your income, taking action to create your own security. So, saving your money, maybe investing your money, growing your own food. Cancer is cardinal and wants to take action and do something towards these goals, especially with Mars sextiling supporting the driving factor. Go with your gut to see what action Jupiter is calling you to do. All of these themes are relevant the whole year Jupiter is in Cancer, but this sextile with Mars is a shorter window, and this is a great time to start something and do something actionable. Mars in Virgo wants to do something correctly the first time. It does not want to mess up and have to go back and try again. So take a hot moment to really plan in advance and then get started with initiating.
Yeah, this is happening in my 10th house. Again, Cancer Sun. I think I said that in the first episode. I'm like, I'm a Cancer. Hi. I think that's also just like my Libra. Anyway, yeah, I'm I'm super excited.
Reads out all your placements.
I know. Everyone's gonna know my whole chart. But yeah, well, yeah, because my Mercury is also in the 10th house. So like that kind of lands beautifully for starting this new adventure with podcasting, I think. Just like the house of ambition and work with Mercury in there for communication. Oh yeah, and the part about Mars and Virgo, and then just the perfectionist wanting to do that the first time, that's really hard to do, especially with my ADHD. That's gonna
Virgo's hard in general. Mars is also hard in general. But Jupiter in Cancer, not as hard. Jupiter in Cancer is just a wonderful transit, and you'll want to take a look at how this is impacting your own chart and see where this is taking place in your life to get more information. Mars is supporting you in taking action towards figuring out some long-term plans and starting something new to work toward things that you want to grow over the next year. Did that make sense?
I think so. So basically you're just saying like the sextile to Mars is just like let's go. Let's take some action. In
Yeah.
my case, let's start just like recording a freaking podcast.
The other thing too is sextiles. They are a beneficial energy, but they require you to actively do something. A trine is another aspect where things are kind of supposed to come to you effortlessly, but a sextile you have to put in the effort. You are supported in that effort, but you have to actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, between the two of us, we probably put in like 10 hours into
Oh
this
my God,
episode.
I know.
So we are doing the thing. And we hope it grows over the next year. We're just gonna put those intentions out there.
Yeah. I will have this Jupiter transit going through my 9th house, and with Cancer being about home and security and safety, and expanding on that, I really want to put some intention into saving more money. I probably wrote too much about this transit being about saving money because that's what I'm going to hope to manifest with this. But I do have Jupiter ruling my 2nd house of income. So it was all on my mind. But I'm
I
way too
love
much
that
of a
for
spender.
you.
Yeah, no. I was just about to say, Ember and I are always telling each other, like, oh my God, I'm going to buy this thing. Like, oh, we gotta
And to
stop buying
clarify,
things.
that thing is usually some sort of like
Oh
educational
my
tool,
God,
whether
I
it's
know. It's some kind of expensive class. It's some kind of
Mhm.
book. It's some kind of cool journal. Something that we don't need but so badly want.
One of witchy things. I know that, they say like you can practice witchcraft and not spend money. I
My
totally
Taurus
am.
moon can't.
I'm totally down with that. I admire the crap out of people, but like I need stuff.
Oh, I
Like
love
that's
things.
so terrible.
Having
I could
items
just
is
wish
my favorite.
I'm like, but this crystal is so important.
It's so
Um,
pretty.
but yeah, I'm hoping for you too. Let's manifest that money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a really good summary of the transits, Jordan. I think feedback from all of you, like, are you learning from this? Like listening, I know for myself, listening to the jargon is like really helpful actually. And
Mhm.
having these discussions is
Like immersing yourself in the language.
yeah, immersing yourself in the language. Yes. So let us know. Check out, the Patreon notes or wherever we post whether or not you are enjoying these sections, if there's anything else we can provide for you, or if you have questions about like specific things activating your chart, feel free to post in the Patreon and we'll be able to answer you there.
Heck yeah.
All right, Jordan, you ready to jump into our luminaries?
Yeah, I shouldn't have sung over you.
Sometimes I laugh really loud and I like lean forwards and I wonder if it's making it really loud on the microphone. You
It's
should
been
keep
okay.
okay. You
Okay,
should
yeah,
keep
we'll
that
keep
part
it
in the
in. Yeah.
episode.
We're figuring it out as we go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's introduce the luminaries.
All right, so we're gonna like touch on the big three, which is kind of the thing that people tend to know, and then we're gonna dive deeper into the sun and the moon.
Yes. So we also did want to touch on the rising sign. Basically, like an episode, like Jordan said, about the big three. That's really a lot of what you hear about when you're on the surface level of astrology. And it's a really good place to start too. If you're still trying to get to know the planets, the houses, you could look at like what house your sun is in. And if you're studying astrology right now, we're gonna dive deeper into things like archetypes, activities you may be able to do to work with these, some plant or crystal allies to really strengthen your relationship with the luminaries. So we're hoping that we can touch on both beginners and people who may have been studying for a little while.
Yeah, I know when I first started learning astrology, like before I had like pulled up an actual natal chart because I didn't know how to read a natal chart, I would just Google like gosh, what was Astro Cafe? I think is where I would get the tables from. And it wouldn't be like the degree chart that we were used to seeing. It would be like a
Yeah.
table and it would say like Mercury, seventh house, Taurus, and then I would Google what does Mercury in seventh house in Taurus mean?
Yeah, I had co-star, which
Hmm.
I don't love anymore. But I don't love co-star anymore. They post questionable things on their Instagram. But
I
anyway,
didn't know that.
yeah,
Is
what?
there tea? What's the tea?
Um, I it was very like political, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Honestly, I
Interesting.
unfollowed them. So
Interesting. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
do a rabbit
I
dive.
it was like interpreting something that just I don't even remember. It was like a couple months ago, like
Oh my
maybe the
God, I'm so
beginning of
curious.
yeah.
I'm gonna look at all their posts
Anyway,
now.
totally unfollow them. This is not a bash co-star. If you use co-star, like
Live your
I
life.
fine. Yeah, live your life. I also
You're
really
on
love
your own journey, yeah.
the Chani app is really great. I do love that.
They are great, yeah. So, Ember, how do you feel about the connection between the sun and the moon and the rising? Do you feel like there is one that represents the native more than the other? Do you feel like they're all equal? How does it vibe with you?
Ooh, so I didn't really even know what my rising sign was until a few years ago and learned that, the rising sign is how that presents towards people. So for me, I'm a Libra rising. So, like, sense of fairness, the ability to connect with people, maybe make them feel a little like at ease when I'm around them. But I definitely also have that like dark people pleasing side for sure. And I just didn't, I don't know, like, I I definitely really vibed hard with my son, my Cancer son, and expressing that. So as far as does the sun, the rising, the moon matter? I think it totally depends on maybe where your sun may fall in your house. So like if you have the sun in your first house, I guess that could like literally emphasize the full expression of your sense of self.
Also
And
gives you some Leo qualities.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I just like I don't know where you are in life. So like maybe if you're yeah, I don't know, maybe if you're like younger too. I do think there's an aspect of when you're younger, you tend to be more of somebody who may be expressing that like layer, like that mask that the rising sign represents. And as you get older, you may feel more comfortable expressing your sun sign and really embracing who you are. Or maybe you don't feel safe enough to express your sun sign. I don't know. So those are my thoughts. But the rising sign is so important for the rest of the chart. So I don't know.
Yeah, it
I would
sets
say
up the
like they're
chart.
equal. Yeah, I would say they're equal in the sense of like who you are as a person. But like as far as for the rest of your chart, like rising sign, I don't yeah, it's gonna be like so essential. What about you, Jordan?
I actually did not identify with my rising sign like at all until maybe sometime within the past year. I'm still like learning to identify with it. And I'm a Gemini sun, and my mom would always say like you're such a Gemini in like a loving way. I know people today seem to hate Geminis, but
Gemini moon.
yeah, so I would just kind of like I was excited to be a Gemini, and I feel like I looked for Gemini qualities in myself. And I'm a Scorpio rising, and I like didn't feel like a Scorpio at all. I felt like, and they say too, your rising sign can like describe what you look like. And I don't look like a Scorpio, like the stereotypical Scorpio. I don't dress like a Scorpio. And I've also come to learn that like astrology is so much deeper than that one size fits all of like, you should look like a Scorpio kind of thing.
What does it mean to look like a Scorpio?
I would have to look more into this. I actually have a book right over there that I'm not going to go grab, but I think it's called Body Archetypal Astrology, and it has to do with using astrology to talk about how you look like. And there's more through that book, through skimming through it. I've learned there's more than just your rising sign to determine how you look. Because the whole thing is like the rising is how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
And I've also heard someone has told me that like you are meant to rise into your rising sign. And so I've thought maybe as I go on in life, maybe I will become more Scorpio-ish. But I think I've also like I see more Scorpio in myself than I used to. It's just hard when you're first getting into astrology and you're just kind of working with buzzwords and it's hard to actually like apply it to like real people and your own self. But once you like get to know it better, it's easier to apply to yourself. And then, Ember, have you heard of sect before?
Have I heard of sex?
Sect,
Oh,
SECT.
no.
Have you heard about the birds and the bees?
That is a different podcast, Jordan.
But yeah, have you heard of sect?
No.
I wasn't planning on talking about this. It's not like in advance. It's actually pretty easy to understand. But it has to do with whether you were born during the day or born at night. And when I was editing our last episode where we had talked about like if you don't know your rising sign or if you don't know your birth time to like use the time when the sun rose or to use a noon chart. And I realized as I was editing, I was like, that would completely not account for night charts. So there's this whole idea of like planets being on your team. The sun is on one team, the moon is on another team. They're both neutral, but I've wondered if that has anything to do with like which one you might identify with more. But in general, I kind of feel like I mean, I can't imagine the sun and moon being unequal. I feel like they are pretty equal.
Yeah, I think my moon is actually the one that I've had the hardest identifying with. So Gemini moon, learning more about it, I'm like, oh, like this does kind of sound like me. Just that I don't know, I just identified so strongly with my Cancer sun. And then even like the Libra rising, I do feel for me, like after I learned about Libra rising or what, the archetypes of Libras just tending to be these like connection people that really care about just balance and harmony. I think on that level of how I present myself in the world, how I am even at the workplace, like that is totally accurate. But yeah, Cancer completely. Anybody who really knows who I am would be like, I've had people like randomly guess my sun sign. And then yeah, the Gemini moon is definitely the one that's been a little bit more elusive to me. And I think as I start to learn more, I'm starting to identify with it more. So it's been an interesting journey.
In pop astrology, we know that there has been a huge focus on sun signs. And I know, like, right now we're talking about the big three, which has had a rise in popularity. And we're also talking about, like, do we see the sun and moon as equal, or does the sun, like, some people think that the sun matters more in your chart because of those daily magazine horoscopes that people used to read. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. All right. All right, history buffs. You're going to get out your notebook here because this was part of like mine and Jordan's research. So I can't say I know the complete history of horoscopes. Like, I don't know. I know that probably dates back to like the Babylonians, and we definitely, Jordan, should do a history episode. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
So in our research, we're going to go back to the 1930s with the rise of media and newspapers, and specifically in the UK in 1930, a princess was born. And of
Princess
course,
Margaret.
yes, Princess Margaret.
Yeah.
And princess royalty birth is like stop the press news. Everyone was like, oh, we need to talk about this. But the newspaper that was going to publish this actually had like missed the date. They were a weekly newspaper, so they had like missed the date. So the announcement.
Yeah, because it was like, because I looked this up like so recently. She was born on a Thursday, and this obviously the newspaper was called the Sunday Express, so it came out on Sunday. And by the time Sunday hit, it was old news that she was born. So they had to
Yeah.
like quickly like replace the story.
Yes. And so they decided that so horoscopes and astrology was a thing. And so they tried to basically be like, oh, this would be so cool if we could like tell the princess's future. And so they tried to get a famous astrologer in who ended up turning it down, but they were able to go to one of his assistants, so R.H. Naylor, who wrote the first article that was called What the Stars Foretell for the New Princess. And people loved this column so, so much that Naylor ended up doing a predictions article for people born in September in the UK. And I'm not going to get into all the details here, but essentially, Naylor was signed for a weekly article that started as basically this like monthly prediction article, but essentially did develop into the sun signs, which after it developed into the sun signs was then picked up by almost every big selling national paper, which totally makes sense, right, Jordan? Like when you think about this time period, if like, I mean, I don't want to be reflective here, but we're talking about like a time period where the economy was really bad and maybe World War II was starting to brew. Um, and
Maybe
people just
history repeats itself.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna like, but yeah, I think just like this sense of wanting to know what's going to happen, right? Like this newspaper that you could just read and get some sense of comfort or preparation of something going on. And the reason, I mean, the sun sign was chosen essentially was because it would take people a lot of time and effort to try to figure out their rising sign, but everybody knows their birthday. So they were able to just be like, hey, here's your sun sign astrology. When's your birthday? This is where you need to read it. And people really just started picking up on that. And that's really where sun sign astrology came from.
Yeah, and thinking about the time period too, it's interesting to think about like fortune telling was illegal. And I read a bit into because later R.H. Naylor got sued or something. And I read a bit about the case, and it was really interesting how specific they had to be and like what is fortune telling and when is it not fortune telling? Because it's I mean, this is a newspaper, so like they have to be following the law. So we should do a whole episode on that because that was kind of interesting how they I forget what the act was called. I know Elise would know, but something and Witchcraft Act, and it was like anti fortune telling and cracking down on that. But anyway, so we know that this is where sun sign astrology took its place. I also kind of consider this, I'm probably not the only one. I'm sure this has been said a million times, but I consider like the 1930s and this newspaper to be like the birth of what is pop astrology and the rise of this whole like sun sign astrology thing. So, Ember, do you think sun sign astrology has its place today, or do you think we need to move on from it?
I think that you have to look at the pros and cons, right? Like sun sign astrology is really accessible for people. And I think there's that benefit. You don't need to know anything besides your birthday. And I do think people can really vibe with your sun. It's what makes you feel good and happy and shine, right? So I think, you know, the downside is that your sun really just knowing your sun kind of flattens who you are. Like it's not
Hmm.
the whole picture, and it can really reduce you to a stereotype and risk like centering your ego around who you are. But you're not going to know anything about how you communicate, express yourself, show love, express anger. So I think sun astrology has its place. I think it's fun and cutesy and
It gets a
like
lot of people into astrology.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that for sure. It was definitely my entrance into
Yeah.
astrology. So I think it has its place. And I think if you really are interested in astrology, though, you just like have to go deeper 100%.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people today are. I mean, because even the fact that, people know their big three now, like, and I'm not saying everyone does, but I would say, I mean, most people who know their sun sign, I would say almost all of those people probably know their big three at this point,
Yeah.
at
And
least
and I
younger
think that's
people.
only because it's become so accessible, right? It's free. Like you can go online and it'll
Hmm.
calculate it for you. I think it's become very accessible versus probably, 20, 25 years ago that was not really an option unless you paid someone to calculate it for you or you went to a book and tried to do that. I said that 20, 25 years ago. That would be 2000. Okay. I'm like, oh, wait, maybe we did, Evan.
Yeah, so this has been a cool conversation. I am excited now to get into the actual like meat of our conversation, which is the sun and the moon. Okay, now let's really get into some of the fun details about the sun.
The sun, here comes the sun.
Do
Do,
do
do,
do
do.
do. So we mentioned this before, but the fun thing about this podcast is that we are also actually just astrology students learning alongside you all with this. So it'll be really interesting to come back to this episode like a year from now and to see like if we cringe at anything we say today about the sun or the moon. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped to talk about the sun because while we're recording this, I haven't seen it in like 10,000 years in upstate New York. But yeah, the sun, like the key themes of the sun's your will, your purpose, your most essential self, who you are when the mask comes off, or I don't know, the clothes come off. And you're just raw and there naked, you. And I just like to think of the sun as what truly lights you up and makes you happy. And if we take it back to like the difference between the rising and the sun sign, I kind of talked about this a little bit, which I know you kind of disagreed with a little bit, Jordan. Like you can like grow into your rising sign. I've always just thought about the rising sign as like when you're a younger person, you feel like the rising sign is kind of like that protective layer that you show people. And as you grow, the sun might be who you become. Um, but I think we talked a little bit about this, about like the
Yeah, and this actually, I feel like this is going to spoil a little bit later, but I feel like that's actually what you're describing is a bit more how I think of the moon too. Like the moon is what we learn to decide is safe to show or not about ourselves. And the sun is how like we have to outwardly express our sun. It has to come out. But the moon, we learn what to show and what not to show from our
Yeah,
moon.
that's so interesting. The moon to me is kind of like an uncontrollable option. Like it's not a choice in the
Hmm.
sense of like it's like an unconscious choice.
Well, it
Where
is, I would say like it's not a choice in the fact that like that is who you are inside, but the choice to show other people.
yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely the I guess to compare then in my brain with like the rising sign would then be just like that's like not so much a conscious decision. It's just like who you are when you're out in the world. Like so maybe it's like to me, maybe then the rising sign is sort of unconscious because it's like who you are out in the day to day when you're like wearing your clothes and like this is who I am. Where the moon would be like more when you're alone and like what's going on internally.
Yeah. This might be more pop astrology too. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I think I've also heard people say like the rising sign is how other people perceive you. So like the sun is who you are and it's who you know you are, but the rising sign is how you actually come across to other people. So maybe I don't want to use myself as an example too often, but just to do it now. So I'm a Gemini sun, which makes me think that I'm chatty and I'm social and I'm smart and I am a social butterfly and I blend in with a lot of different groups. And I think that I'm bubbly and exciting. But the rising sign as a Scorpio might make me come across as more intense than I realize I do. And maybe I'm not as like bright and bubbly as I picture myself being.
Oh,
And not in a bad way. Like there's pros to the Scorpio, but
yeah.
just that whole like I have an idea in my head of what I think I look like, how I think I show up, but the rising sign, and I guess that would be unconscious then, because the rising sign comes out anyway, or
Yeah.
something.
I like that. I think, how this shows up in your chart is where you could really look at what house you have your sun sign in. And the key themes for those will basically be how those house themes show up for you in a way that's just like, damn, this feels really good. This lights me up and feels so true to me. So, like, for example, I've said it, my son in my 10th house. We talked about earlier career, ambition, determination to succeed, maybe a desire for public recognition, which is like so true for me. Words of affirmation light up my soul. And then Jordan, where's your son?
I
In
have
which
my
house?
sun in the eighth house.
Okay, that's what I thought. I think I wrote that down too, and I just like forgot. Um, so like eighth house, right? So like we're talking like
Debt,
transformation.
death,
Yeah,
taxes.
I'd go with like transformation and sexuality and like power
No, yeah.
dynamics and fun stuff like that.
I do, and this goes, farther into houses than we're ready to go into yet, but the eighth house is also one of the hidden houses. So like I don't know a better way to phrase this, but I guess I would kind of view it too as like the sun. It's not that it shines last year, it's just that like I would consider this like it's just more of an inward shining, I guess. But I do think like sun in the eighth house makes me a great researcher, very interested in psychology. I would think this along with my Scorpio rising and along with my chart ruler being in the eighth house, I think this is an indication that I might be a good judge of character, and not just judge of character, but that I'm a quiet observer and that I will pick up a lot more on you than you think you're showing me.
Mm,
It's very mysterious.
I like it. Yeah. No, I like that. All of that to say that if I was to study the key themes of the sun on my index card, I'd basically write like identity, ego, soul, essence. Well, soul can be questionable depending on how you view the soul, but I put soul on my index card. um,
Yeah.
like your life force, your purpose, your sense of just like what drives you.
Yeah, and creative expression too.
creative expression too. So we got our key themes for the sun.
Whoop, whoop.
Something I learned from Jordan, which I did not know before this,
Like
is
our little jingle, some kind of jingle. We learned something
we do need a learning jingle.
together.
We could pay someone on Fiverr to do that.
I know. I'm like $15. Who wants it?
So yeah, the planets and the luminaries have body part relationships. And I think that totally makes sense when we're learning about magic or like herbs, everything usually has some sort of relation to the body. I just never thought about it in the sense of astrology. So Jordan, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have this conversation too, Ember, because you are a medical professional. So I'm excited to see what little tidbits you can share here. But the sun in astrology is kind of considered like the heart of the chart. So it's the life force, it's the thing that keeps things moving and the things that keep you beating. And the sun literally rules over the heart and the circulatory system. So the sun is ruling over our body's distribution of nutrients and oxygen, which is obviously very essential to our health.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense with the key themes you were talking about. And a great way to kind of like associate that too and help you memorize like what the sun actually is. The sun is like the heart, your core, who you are. Something I thought that was really interesting actually is when I was doing some of the I keep putting my hand in front of my mouth. I don't know why. But the sun in my research of plants and herbs tend to be related to plants that also can affect your heart and circulatory system. And so I was able to
Ooh.
put those things together and I thought that was super cool and not
Ooh.
something I
I love
realized
that.
before. Yeah, so totally makes sense.
Well, that makes me think of one of the things too that the sun rules over vitamin D absorption. And that's kind of like an obvious one. But I remember I had read a few others. It rules over like gold, vitamin A as well. I don't know what vitamin A is. But anyway, so the sun does rule over other functions in our body too, like our energy reserves, our metabolism, our cellular function, the conscious state or like the being awake state. I'm not a medical astrologer, but what I am talking about now is what I have learned from Heather Land. And you can really learn a lot about your health through looking at just like the element that the sun is in. So somebody with like a fire sun may have an easier time recharging their energy faster, take less time to warm up, but they'll also probably like burn out faster. So they're definitely like sprinters. Earth signs are probably better with long distance running. They do take longer to recharge, but the use of their energy is more steady and consistent. They don't run out of energy as quickly like someone with their sun in a fire sign would.
I really love that running analogy. Like the water sign for me, I'd be like hanging out in the sidelines cheering and giving you a really big hug when you're done sprinting.
You're there with the water coolers.
With the water coolers. No, I think that goes a lot into how we recharge, right? Like as a water sun, I've already talked about like my recharge looks like soaking in a tub, hanging out by a river, doing some journaling, or just like taking some time to be alone. But then you may have an air sign, let's see, who may need to like talk a lot about that marathon afterwards. And that's how they recharge. Um, yeah, this self-care discussion, actually, I'm really excited to go deeper in later episodes because I know there's a lot of different places we can look at this in the chart. And the sun being how you conserve or like restore that energy is so important to that.
So, Amber, I said that I'm really excited to talk about this with you because you are a medical professional. So, is there anything in here that like sparked anything that you've got some cool facts about?
So you mentioned earlier that the sun rules over vitamin A, vitamin D. So vitamin A is going to be like your retinol, your carotenoids. Did I say that right?
I
Carotenoids.
don't know.
It's a fat soluble vitamin. Retinol is really good for your skin and stuff, but the vitamin D, as a side note, actually, not all animals actually need vitamin D. They don't need, I'm sorry, they need vitamin D. They don't need vitamin D from the sun. And they can get it from like diet and stuff. So your cats and dogs can really get it exclusively from their diet. Whereas humans, we can obviously do both, right? Like we could take vitamin D supplements when we have to. But like this is why the sun is so important for us is because most of our vitamin D does come from the sun. I don't know. Maybe like for animals, the sun would be ruling over their gut or something for
Is
dogs
there
and
any animal that can't get it from their diet? That like
um
relies exclusively on the sun that you know of?
yeah, I mean, like reptiles, like why UVB light is so important for
Mm.
them. Like you can still supplement, but they're mostly going
They
to,
wouldn't do that in the wild, yeah.
yeah, they're mostly going to need that from like the UVB.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know about like deep sea animals that like don't see any sun. I'm
Yeah, I was
assuming.
thinking that too.
Yeah, I'm sure there's animals that probably don't need vitamin
I
D.
was
I
gonna say
think.
they probably I was about to say I imagine they just don't need it, I guess.
Yeah.
So moving beyond what the sun represents and what part of us the sun rules over, who is the sun really? So what archetypes can we imagine when we're working with the sun?
Yeah, I really like this section. Like how I think it's really helpful when you're studying to be able to like personify different bodies. And so how can we personify the sun? So there's obviously mythology, which definitely has value, but Jordan, you and I have talked about how we know things, right? We
I
know like
don't.
the sun is this well, I know like the sun is associated with like Helios and Apollo and more of like the Greek mythology. But I'm not super well versed on like the stories and history of that. So, how do we or listeners personify the sun or like work with the sun?
So one of the archetypes that's well known for the sun is the hero. The sun is the hero, especially in Aries. But in our storybooks, like what does the hero always do? And this is the kind of thing that we can like start to think about to really apply these archetypes into our lives or to be able to like personify them in a way that we as humans can connect to and relate with. So the hero, who is the hero, they are someone who is always facing challenges along the story and discovering their true selves and their purpose.
The hero, that's such a classic story. So, like, who's our hero? Like Simba, Simba from the
Yeah.
Lion King.
That's such a good example. But yeah, so Simba has this destiny to become king, which is another archetype of the sun, the king, the monarch, the ruler. But Simba has a destiny to become the king. And as a young kid, he's just a happy-go-lucky, playful, curious, and excited little cub. And that's very sun.
Have you seen the new Mufasa movie?
I am actually not the biggest Disney person. And then I
Okay.
have this weird thing. What part of my chart explains this? I have this weird thing where
Love when you
we
take it back to the chart.
I told you about this weird when we were talking about podcasts. I do this weird thing where I have to start from the beginning of everything and complete the entire thing. Like I'm such a completionist. And so I have had this goal forever to watch every single Disney movie in order, but I don't
Oh my
like Disney
gosh.
that much. So I don't know why I have this goal. And so I tried to switch it to because I do love live actions. I'm a big fan of remakes. I'm a big fan of making everything live action. Uh,
Okay.
this is such a tangent, but
I
my,
love it
my
though.
my next goal is to try to watch all the live actions in order, and I haven't started yet. I think 101 Dalmatians is the first one. But to answer your question, no, I have not seen the new Mufasa movie.
Oh my gosh. Well, I haven't either, but
Oh, okay. Well, good talk. Good talk.
I was just wondering because I was like Mufasa, Simba basically like watches his dad die, like RIP, and believes it's his fault. So I started thinking
Right.
about
The
Mufasa. But
first big
anyway,
challenge of the hero. Yeah.
yeah, that's his. I mean, that really, it's sad. That's a sad moment. I cried as a child a lot.
I
And
cried
like
in
he's so
Bambi.
sad. And then Simba's not Simba anymore.
Well, I think, and that's an interesting way to put it, like seeing him like as not Simba anymore. So after that moment of watching his dad die, and blaming himself, he essentially runs away from this life purpose of becoming the king. And so we kind of see like his light being dimmed and like the death of his ego.
Sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And he's like hiding. Oh, if he's like hiding to like avoid his like purpose
Yeah.
of like leadership. And yeah, he's
Yeah.
definitely like he's gonna be a leader. He's Leo's
Yeah. And it's
son.
all part of the hero's journey. Like you're not really going to be a hero if you do nothing, if you don't have any kind of challenge. But you do see like his son being dimmed a little bit. And while he's away, he is still Simba. Like he is still him. He's just like not shining to the full potential that he was like born into.
He's not the king and leader.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
back in the day, he just couldn't wait to be king.
Hakuna Matata, baby.
And all that stuff, yeah.
But yeah, I guess Hakuna Matata later on, his friends come back. And then they help him connect to his full self. Oh my gosh, this is so cute.
Yeah.
So maybe his son is in like the 11th house.
Yeah. Because if we're saying he's a Leo sun, then that would make him a Libra rising.
Which kind of tracks.
But yeah, so then there's this part where we see his father, like the spirit of his father, say that famous line, "You are more than what you have become." So this is kind of his dad saying, like, you, like deep down to your core, you have more in you than what you are doing right now. You are destined for more. You have such a bigger purpose than what you're displaying now. So you are more than what you have become. And this is like Simba realizing that his light has been dimmed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then he like goes back and challenges Scar and takes his place on the throne as king. And now he's back with his destiny and soul purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
Answering
this is
his life's call.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah. And so it's this whole story of like going through the journey to achieve what your soul came here to do. And that, that can get into a conversation of like the North Node as well. But like to keep it simple, I just think that was a really cool, long-winded way to talk about one of the archetypes that has to do with the sun. But some others that you could talk about would be the father. The sun represents the father figure in your life. I don't know if I really vibe with that as much, if I've seen that to be accurate. There are different ways people use to determine parents in the chart, and I just haven't really figured out which one I vibe with the most at this point. But the sun is also the monarch. The sun is a ruler and a leader, and the sun likes to be in charge. The sun is a performer, very dramatic. And the sun craves outward expression and just loves attention and audience and external validation.
Amazing. I love that.
So we've talked a bit about what the sun rules over and a bit about who the sun is, but Ember, I would really love to hear about the earthly correlations with the sun.
Yes. Okay. Heck yeah. We can't have a witchy podcast without talking about some crystals and plants and tarot. So it was really hard putting together these lists. And I want to like caveat it all by saying that there are so many options to represent different planetary bodies, the signs. So these are mostly coming from my own brain and what it thinks about when talking about these luminaries. I also did do some research and reference some books. And, we may do this with the planets too. But just the caveat that like this is not an exhaustive list. And I'm not so much an herbal witch. I do like to mess with some herbs and plants and teas and stuff, but I wouldn't classify myself as an herbal witch. But I do love crystals. And tarot is something that I'm learning right now because oracle cards have kind of mostly been my jam. So I'm learning tarot. Jordan, do you like mess with crystals or tarot or plants or anything?
A little bit. Not herbs much at this point, but I do have my lovely plant collection. I do have a bunch of crystals as well. And then tarot, I really do want to learn more about tarot, but I just put so much time and energy into astrology that I haven't been able to pick up on tarot much yet, but I do like to use it to supplement astrology.
Cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, tarot is definitely one of them that like I can get the general themes, but it's the numerology that's I'm still learning. But let's take these things. So let's say you want to get to know the sun, channel the sun, honor the sun. You can use these tools and do things like make yourself a sun tea. For crystals, if you're like looking to represent the sun in a ritual or just like honor the sun, you can use crystals like citrine, sunstone, carnelian. So all of these stones, really common, like really beautiful yellow, reds, oranges. I happen to have my sunstone in my pocket. Where did I put it? Somewhere on my table. I brought my sunstone with me, and I'm wearing like a little moonstone ring. But I also have like a sunstone bracelet. I really love wearing too. So anything about crystals, just make sure you're sourcing your crystals ethically. You can totally do this by asking your local stores like how they obtain their crystals, but crystal sourcing can get a little sketchy. So I would always recommend checking out the sources. And then for your herbs and plants, you can either go the route of representing herbs that are going to kind of like relate to the sun in a way that's warming and hot. Actually, Jordan, I don't know if we've talked about this before. Have I talked to you about my classes at like Eastern in Eastern medicine. It's the Chi Institute in Florida where I did some acupuncture stuff.
No, when I was like reading through the script, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah, so I definitely, have taken those classes before. I'm not certified yet. Like I didn't finish the actual, like I have to write like an essay and stuff like that. But in Eastern medicine, you always have herbs that you can use that represent like cooling or warming features. And so we learned a little bit about this in my class, even though it was like an acupuncture focused class. We did talk a little bit about this. So there's literally herbal remedies that you can use to like dispel cold from your body, or like in the context of animals, I guess I was learning it in. And any of those can like dispel cold can be good for representing the sun. They also call them like yang herbs, but anyway, yeah, think of the herbs that can like restore energy and vitality. And some of them that I use, like really I have these like intuitive connections with the plants that I may use to represent the sun. But I did also for this use the Culpeper's guide and breezed through that really fast. So I just wanted to mention, I'm going to get my little book out because we're in class and I got to take my little book out. Some things that are going to be coming more from this like herbal guide versus, I don't know, these weren't as intuitive for me, but like St. John's wort, saffron, rosemary,
I
peonies.
read rosemary is like the sun in Aries. So I read rosemary as like exalted sun.
Yeah, that's kind of what the book was saying too. Like the Culpeper. That's what your mentor used, right?
Yeah, Heather Land. I'm pretty sure a lot of people reference it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
good book.
actually where did I even learn that? Because I actually don't have the book. But I did learn that somewhere. Maybe it was from Heather.
Yeah, I did not always associate rosemary with the sun, but I really love that for rosemary. Yeah, so that was essentially my list that I got from Culpeper's.
So you mentioned earlier, like that these herbs can like dispel cold from your body. What do you mean by that?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm also going on like a little detour tangent here. But essentially, in traditional Chinese medicine, to dispel cold means you're going to like actually literally remove cold as a pathogenic factor in your body. And so, like, cold isn't just temperature, it's actually like a pathogen. And in Chinese medicine, there's 6 different pathogens. Like, there's like cold and damp and heat and phlegm, and cold can show up as like stiff joints, slow movement. Sometimes you may have an animal that's like always seeking warmth. They may have cold ears or nose or paws. And essentially, I was looking to treat it with like tonifying points in acupuncture, but you can also use these warming herbs and tools. There's more to it. Like you need to do more diagnosing of like the actual cause. Sometimes you can have like too little yin. So you actually want to like tonify yeah. Anyway, it would be too little yang. So you don't have enough heat. So your body is cold versus like you have too much cold. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's gets into sort of like medical diagnoses. But anyway, what I'm trying to do, that whole tangent is to say that there's different herbs. So like some of the ones I read for plants from the book, but the ones that I actually intuitively use are like ginseng, cinnamon, or turmeric. Do you use any herbs, Jordan, to like represent the sun? Any other ones that you could think of?
Not to represent the sun. This is really interesting though. I think because you said there's 6 chi. Is that what you said?
6 pathogenic factors.
Okay, and what were they?
So cold, damp, heat, dryness, summer heat. So like it's a different kind of heat, and wind.
Okay, I guess this isn't going where I thought it was, but there's also a correlation with the planets, and I wasn't gonna like talk about this much because I don't know enough about it and I haven't really applied it to my own practice yet, but each planet has an association with being dry or wet or cold or hot, and the sun is dry and hot. So I thought maybe that
Mm.
was going along there, but maybe not.
No, I think it definitely could.
Hmm.
I think that association could definitely, I guess we'll explore it a little bit more, but I think that correlation could totally exist. And I just want to throw out there too, again, intuitively, if something beautiful like sunflowers or marigolds or an essential oil like bergamot speaks to you, just follow your intuition. And if that feels representative for you, don't let anybody be like, no, that doesn't work. Cause like it's totally fine. And obviously, like do your research if you are ever planning on consuming something.
Yeah, great advice.
Yeah. Make sure it's like you do your research, it's a quality product, hasn't been exposed to anything toxic. You're not just like I don't know, harvesting marigolds off the highway and eating them.
Yeah. And then We were talking about the tarot earlier. So what, I mean, I guess I'm going to assume, does the sun correlate with the sun in tarot?
Yes. Surprise.
Wow. So smart.
No, it definitely I
Stay tuned for a surprise later though.
yeah, so I think we need to interview someone later who's super into like the tarot astrology connection. I think that could be really cool. But I can
Yeah.
talk about what I do know. And yes, the sun, absolutely in the major arcana, there's that obvious connection, represents ego, life force, creativity. And you can also actually throw the strength card in there, which is ruled by the zodiac sign Leo, which, as we talked about, is ruled by the sun and can represent like vitality, health, resilience.
Yeah, and I just finished a talk with Nick Lasky. He did a NORWAC talk, and NORWAC is a really popular astrology conference that happens every year in Seattle. It just happened in our time about a week ago. But he did a talk on how to use tarot to supplement astrology. It was really, really good. But he had talked about the minor arcana and how it relates to the decans in astrology, and that's like more advanced than what we're talking about now. But astrology just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, I swear. But we should definitely make like a little like document for Patreon on these correspondences because it's a lot. It's a lot to learn.
Yeah, we'll make a cute document. I have a tarot book too that goes into the astrology. So like there's definitely more,
Oh my God,
like
I
a
want to see
deeper way to go.
it.
Yeah, it's just like a chart. It's super cute, but it's just a chart in this tarot book I have. Okay, Jordan. So I know that you're ready to tell us about our son's dignities. I keep saying dignitaries. So, like, right before Jordan and I were talking, and I was like, Jordan, we need to talk about the son's dignitaries. And she just like looked at me and was like, dignities? And I'm like, yes, the dignitaries.
That's the one. Yep.
So, Jordan, tell us a little bit about the son's dignities.
Yeah, so again, the dignities are kind of about like the quality that the planet is in. So every planet has one or two signs that is their domicile, so that's like their home. Every planet has one or two detriments where they're uncomfortable. Every planet has one exaltation, that's where they love to be, and one fall where they hate to be. We used this example in the last episode, but just to review with it, the sun is at home in Leo. This is the sun's domicile. The sun is romantic and showy and inspires creativity and excitement, just like Leo does. So there's no challenge here for the sun being in Leo. The sun is comfortable. The sun gets exactly what it wants to get. It acts exactly how you think it will act. And there's really no challenge here for the sun. In Aquarius, the sun is less comfortable. The sun is in its detriment in Aquarius. The sun wants to be liked by as many people as possible, but Aquarius does not care to be liked at all. Aquarius is totally happy being the weird one, the one who's seen as out there. And you'll hear people often say that Aquariuses march to the beat of their own drum. So they are totally cool to be the lone wolf, the lone ranger, doing their own thing, and that's just not what the sun is all about. So the sun is out of its comfort zone here, but the sun still can do just fine. The sun can learn to appreciate an identity that is seen as out there. It just takes time and it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more friction there. In Aries, the sun is exalted. In this sign, the sun gets to establish and start new things while being the center of it. And the sun will have the confidence to charge ahead with boldness and with courage, just like Aries and just like the sun. And this is where the sun really gets to shine as the hero. But in Libra, which is the sun's fall, here the sun is very concerned with other people and how they're reacting and how they're feeling and how they're vibing, which is what Libras are all about. They're all about the other person and the relationships and the connections. And again, the sun is very much like me, myself, and I and my identity. So the sun just does not know how to act in Libra and is not very supported in the sun's own goals. So this energy just doesn't jive as easily with the sun's natural tendency to be the center of attention. So with this placement, the sun just has to really think about everybody else and has to like share the stage essentially.
Yeah, I want to shout out our first episode where we use sort of the metaphor for this of like the stage and like the casting calls on how like being the sun in some of these areas and how that plays out, whether they are exalted and that's sort of like the is it the Oscars?
Yeah, the Oscar nominee
The
role or
Oscar
whatever.
nominee awards. Or that they just are like an actor maybe super unsupported when they're in their fall. So if you are interested in that metaphor, you're welcome to go to our first episode and get a little bit deeper into the dignities, not dignitaries, the dignities. Okay, so domicile in Leo for the sun. Domicile. I'm saying that right? Like I always
Domicile.
domicile. I want to say domicile. Domicile.
Mm-hmm.
So the sun's domicile is in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Its detriment is Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
It's exalted
Which
in
is
Aries.
the opposite of Leo. Leo is this is kind of like, if you haven't looked at a zodiac wheel yet, you might not be able to visualize this, but Leo is right across from Aquarius. So
Is
that's
that
how that
always the
connects.
case?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
Same
like,
with exaltation and fall. So Aries and Libra are across from each other, and they're the
oh,
sun's exaltation and fall.
Oh, that is okay. So for those of you who are like may not love like just memorizing stuff and you're really good with patterns, that's very
Mm-hmm.
helpful to know actually.
Yeah.
And also remember we do have our study guide on Patreon. So if you're starting to try to learn these dignities for the different planets, we do have that for you. And then Jordan, I'm curious, like when you're doing readings for people, how do you incorporate the dignities into your readings?
Yeah, this is something I want to learn more about because I feel like this is one of those things that has made me very pessimistic with astrology. Because the way that I've kind of learned with dignities is like, if you have a planet in fall, sucks to suck, there's nothing you can do, and that's just awful. And this is a bit further on too, but when you talk about house rulership, so what planet rules each house in your chart, so like for example, I've talked about this before, I have Saturn in fall conjunct Venus in detriment in Aries. And so that is right there, that's 5 houses that are in my chart that are ruled or touched by these planets in fall and detriment. So that just like takes out half my chart and makes it unfortunate. So
I love when you say it's unfortunate. I would word it that like you have challenges in this lifetime to overcome, which is like pretty awesome though. It kind of gives you like those goals, like, okay, where are my challenges and like how can I overcome them or what do I need to keep an eye out for? Like I almost think of
yeah.
it as like the cheat sheet. Like this is like a way to kind of get a hint of what you need to like pay attention to in your chart.
This is definitely going to be a future episode, but it's one of those things that makes me think about like how much free will do we have versus fate? Because there's some part of me that like, if we believe in astrology, then we have to believe that something is fated. And that's kind of a blanket statement. Not everybody who believes in astrology agrees with what I'm saying. And I don't even know what I believe yet. But yeah, if you think astrology can predict things, then some part of you thinks that there's fate, probably. And
Mm.
so when something looks so unfortunate in my chart, there's a part of me that's like, well, I'm fated to have this suck forever. And I don't want to believe that, but I just don't know. I don't know how much free will we can have. And this is such like an existential like question I've been asking myself for the past 2 months. So like I don't totally have like an answer of where I'm going here with this. So typically like when looking at a chart and looking at the dignity that it's in, I would kind of use it like it depends on the question that's being asked too. So like if someone is asking me about their relationship with their second child, I will look at the ruler of their seventh house, which rules their second child. And let's say the ruler of that planet, let's just say it's the sun. And if the sun is in Libra, I might say, and if there's no other like positive aspects to the sun, I might say like this looks like a challenging relationship.
Oh no.
And from there, like I'd probably try to find like other supportive things going on there, and then try to like really build out the story like around there. So I wouldn't just end with that one statement. But then the other way around, like if the sun is in Aries, I would say like this is probably a very forward relationship for you, very positive, very full of opportunity, something like that. And then it depends on like the house that it's in and all that. So yeah, that's how I use the dignities. But I
Yeah.
definitely, like I said, I want to learn more because I don't want to look at my chart and feel depressed anymore.
No, that's just so interesting. I wanted to ask because that's not something that I've started to touch on yet in my studies and like how to incorporate that into readings. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I think we are no, I think we're ready to talk about transits.
Yeah.
On a transits, Jordan.
Heck yeah, the sun in transit.
Okay. So as you guys might be guessing, I am still newer to my studies in astrology. So I very much remember when I first heard about transits and planets moving and how they're transiting through different parts of my charts. And I did not understand what that meant. So we're really excited to talk about this now. And so we know that planetary bodies, right, are always moving from our perspective on Earth. That's kind of how like a transit works, and how when we talk about the transits, that's what's happening. So, Jordan, what does it mean for like maybe some newer astrologists out there when the sun is transitioning our charts or somewhere in our chart?
Transiting our charts.
What did I say?
Transitioning.
Transitioning our charts.
Yeah.
The dignitaries are transitioning our charts.
Yeah, so when the sun is transiting, so the sun is always transiting, every planet is always transiting. The transiting is just like the movement, and it kind of refers to like the current movement. Like the natal chart is stagnant. The natal chart stays the way it is forever, but the planets continue moving. So the current planets are transiting. You might hear people say like the sun is transiting Gemini, and that just means it is moving through Gemini. You might hear the sun is transiting my natal Jupiter. So the sun is transiting right over the natal Jupiter that is still in your chart. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you mentioned like the sun is transiting Gemini, so Gemini's in my ninth house. So the sun would be transiting through my ninth house.
Right.
Okay. And so, like, what does that actually mean? Like, what does a sun's transit actually do?
So there are 360 degrees in a natal chart, and the sun moves about 1 degree each day. So it's a relatively like quicker moving planet, and spends about 30 days in each zodiac sign and in each house using the whole sign houses. And we'll talk about the different house systems another day.
Okay. All right, all right. That makes sense because different planets and planetary bodies, they'll end up like transiting at different speeds, right? So that's
Right.
why like some planets, what is it like Jupiter will be in a sign every 12, is it 12
About
years?
every year. Oh,
About
well,
every
yeah, 12 years to go around the whole zodiac. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So versus the sun, which is like much faster, and we'll
Right.
go through them. Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
So when the sun transits a part of your chart, it is illuminating that part of the chart for you. And the sun is seen as like a neutral influence, so it's not really positive or negative. And it could mean that this part of your chart is being lit up for you to see more, for you to explore more. And depending on like how that shows up in your chart could kind of give you more information if like this is a good thing or maybe a challenging thing for you. That light might feel like an interrogation kind of spotlight, or it might feel like a warm spotlight. It might feel fun for you or whatever. You might also feel a bit more energized in this area of your life. It's important to note too that for the sun to really do much in your chart, it has to actually be activating something in your chart. So if it is transiting, let's say it's transiting your second house and it's making no aspects to any other planets in your natal chart. Aspects are how the planets communicate with each other. So it has to do with like the angles, and it's a whole astrogeography thing. If it's not making any aspects to your natal planets, it's not likely to actually activate or do much in your chart, especially if you don't have anything going on in your second house.
Okay. So that makes sense. So like you'd pull up your chart, see where the sun is, and then how it's lighting up that specific area of your chart. So if I have like planets there, I would see how it's lighting up that or like the specific house. I don't know if you like to mess with the asteroids, if there's anything there. So you'd like take a look and see and then be able to make like influences of not influences, inferences of how that
Mm-hmm.
might be impacting you based on like if you have Mercury in there, maybe like how the sun might be impacting your communication, and maybe like highlighting the communication for that time.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, just
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
and then there's also mundane astrology, and this has to do with like the astrology that is affecting or impacting the collective and not just like your chart. So it's still interesting to study transits, even if like it's not activating anything in your chart like today. It'd be interesting to see like, but what's it doing outside of my natal chart? Like, what does it, so if like when the sun's kind of a hard example because it is such a quicker moving planet. But if we take something like Uranus that is about to move into Gemini for 8 years, that's like something that's really interesting to study for like the collective. What is Uranus in Gemini going to do? Uranus, changes things. Gemini is about communication and being social. Social media is very Gemini-ish, so you can expect like new ways of communication, new internet things, new AI stuff, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. But that's mundane astrology.
Okay. Is mundane astrology, would you equate that to like generational astrology? That's kind of how I've heard it explained a little bit. Like it's where it's like impacting like sometimes like the entire generation that's like really born in that space, right? Because that's like a whole generation that'll have basically like Uranus in Gemini, right? Like 8 years
Mm-hmm.
is a really long time. So that's how I've kind of
Yeah, mundane astrology, it does include all the planets. Like the generational planets are typically like the outer. Sometimes I'd say Saturn and a little bit Jupiter can like get roped in as like considered a generational planet because Jupiter's in a
okay.
sign for a whole year. But mundane still includes like the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. It's just kind of hard to give an example with them because they move much quicker.
Okay.
But like another, we talked about this in one of the astro weather segments. But another big one is the Saturn Neptune conjunction in
Yes.
Aries and how it will be sextiling Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. And those are all outer planets for this example, but that's something that's a big transit and a big placement that's going to impact the whole collective.
Yeah, I keep
Um
seeing a lot about it on social media.
yeah, everyone's talking about it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense about the transits. And I think it's important that we keep talking about this as we go through the planets and how those different planets may affect, like as they transit around your chart or the collective, how they may impact that. So stay tuned for that in the future episodes because I think it's pretty important to talk about because that's kind of like the essential part of astrology, where you're like, seeing if you're really interested in how like the day to day is impacting you and your chart. Like that's going to be really
Yeah.
impactful there.
hmm So now that we've talked about how the sun can influence us by transit and really everything else we've talked about with the sun, the correlations, the archetypes, the key themes, now let's talk about how we can actually work with the sun in our magical and our spiritual practices.
Yay, my lifeblood. Okay. This is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. So when Jordan and I talked about like, oh yeah, we can talk about some rituals with the sun or how to honor the sun. It's really hard because as you know, magic is so broad and can mean so many different things to some people. But I think there's a lot of things you can do here to really like work with the power of the sun if you're looking to honor the sun. So, for example, you could build like a sun altar with some of the correspondences that we talked about earlier. You can put them on that altar. You could literally go sit in the sun and just lay in the sun. Maybe get a solar crystal
With
of
sunscreen.
with sunscreen, PSA.
Or for a very limited amount of time, one of the two.
I always have. I've like the sunscreen that like the SPF moisturizer and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wear your sunscreen, folks.
From a medical professional.
But like also bring your sunstone and you know like hover it over your belly like your solar plexus chakra and just like feel how that feels. And how I think we're gonna do this section as we go through the different planets is that I can talk about it, maybe give some ideas. We could like maybe put a ritual in the Patreon or something like that. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I like the idea of, we're just kind of laying out some ideas. We're just talking about how we might do it, anything that comes to us, and then like, yeah, maybe some like nice written one on our free Patreon.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. And then if you all are seeing that or you're on the Patreon, maybe like put some comments in there if there's something specifically you want to see. Like I mentioned, there's so many different ways to do magic, but essentially finding what works for you. We'll start with a little bit of like understanding how the correspondence kind of speaks to you, so how the sun speaks to you, and going from there. You could literally do that with a song. You could like make a song for the sun and then
Yeah.
use that as a tool that feels like really important to you or in ritual.
I really like
Um,
to write poetry for the
yeah. Oh my
planets. Yeah.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that idea of just like writing poetry to the
Yeah.
planet.
And then you can turn it into a song.
Yeah. Yeah. Get yourself a drum. Oh, yeah. I just love that magic is just so unique to the individual and really just it could come down to like creating an elaborate ritual where you're out in the sun and maybe you set yourself up a protective circle. You could have close friends with you. So this can be like a community activity that feels really good. And maybe you're like chanting a hymn that you may have written to the sun, all the way to just some quiet reflective time by yourself in the presence of the sun with sunscreen or in the shade. But one ritual I really wanted to mention is sun tea. So you may have heard of like moon tea or something like that, full moon tea, but you can absolutely do this with the sun. And one way you can harness the energy of the sun is to create this like beautiful ritual tea with some of the herbs maybe we talked about earlier, or incorporating some common ingredients that can represent the sun. So things like lemon, chamomile, cinnamon, turmeric, and use some water in a pitcher and just set that pitcher out in the sun to essentially incorporate that energy into the tea over the course of a day. And then what I would do is I would set it out at sunrise, make sure I pick it up at sunset, and like really, maybe when I'm setting it out at sunrise, I set some intentions for the tea as I stir it, and then you got yourself a fancy little sun tea.
Yeah, that's really cute. I actually hate sun tea. My dad used to he used to make it every summer, and I always hated it.
Why? Like, did you
I
not
hate the
like
taste of it.
Well, wait, what did he put in it?
Nothing, just tea bags. And he would
Oh,
leave it out in the sun to brew. It was something he learned from like his family.
how witchy.
Yeah,
Um,
he's Catholic.
no, I mean,
But I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. Like if you like you should definitely try it. Especially I think like, if you're already like a healthy, able-bodied person, because I do think there's something about what the sun does to the bacteria in the water. I don't think like I don't know if I should be going into this. Like
I
oh my
think
gosh.
always without fail. So I make sun tea all the time. I usually put some like lemon in there, sometimes some green tea, and I let it sit out. I think do your research. Always look at the ingredients that you're about to consume. You can always Google and make sure that if it's like sitting out. I will say probably one of the things that Jordan may be referencing is like how long that is left there to brew. But usually because it's not boiling, I don't usually have like an issue with it. Like it's not like boiling
That's the
hot.
thing. I think it would really like from the brief research I had done before, like years ago, I think it was only like, because I even though I didn't love it, like I grew up drinking it and I'm fine.
That's
Like
so funny,
I think
Jordan.
as
I
long as you're like,
never
if you don't have any
took
underlying issues, you're probably fine. I just remember because it changes the taste so dramatically. And I didn't like it. And so I remember like I Googled like what's making it change, and it had something to do with like what it's doing to the bacteria in there. But
Interesting. I wonder, was it like black tea or something?
yeah.
Okay. I don't typically use like a black tea. I don't know if that matters, but I
Interesting. Do
just
you
don't like,
taste a difference?
well, I no, I just don't like how bitter black tea gets when you like leave it in for so long. Like usually black tea is just like a 7 or 9 minute brew. Yeah, I just don't like how bitter black tea gets. So I just don't use it.
In the
So
tea that you make, do you taste a difference when you leave it out in the sun versus when you don't?
yeah, it tastes magical.
Tastes sparkly.
Tastes sparkly like glitter and rainbows. No, I don't know. I've never had an issue with it. So I don't know. I always put a lid on it so that buggies don't get in it.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is interesting, and I didn't realize it would spark such controversy.
Yeah, I want to think of something cool too, because I definitely don't want to come across like you shouldn't try this. Like, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. You should totally try it and see if you like it. But
If you end up trying it, make sure you Google your ingredients and then leave us a comment and let us know if
if
it
you
was
liked it,
disgusting.
a lot of people love it. So like, eat your heart out.
But yeah, or just go sit in the sun. Jordan, put your sunscreen on and go sit in the
Yeah,
sun.
that's my way to. I mean, this is beyond just the sun, but like, this is my first year since I've moved into a new apartment. I've been doing some like outdoor gardening, and the connection that kind of gives me with like the earth and with the plant and with the sun and with the water and everything that's like growing this plant. Like to me, that's very spiritual, and to me, it's a connection with more than just the sun, but it is a connection with the sun because the sun is feeding these plants that I am also feeding, and that the earth is also feeding, that the water is also feeding. So that's another way you can connect with the sun.
Love it. Let us know how you connect. We would love to hear it, y'all. And going, speaking of connecting, we want to, as we did in episode 1, give you something to reflect on and something to do. So always, star students, your homework assignments.
Whoop whoop.
For some reflections or journal prompts, if you're looking to connect with the sun here, with your sun tea or your not sun tea, think about questions like, how do I embody my sun energy? When do I feel most like me? So start maybe journaling on that and seeing how that aligns with your sun sign. Or maybe like, what creative energy or superstar vibe am I here to share with the world? So, what are you here for? What are you sending out into the universe? What makes you feel alive?
These are great questions. Oh my God. No, those are so good. Those are so like this is such a good practice to like connect with the sun and then to also like learn your chart and understand a bit about like what your soul wanted to do when it came into this life.
I love that.
And for something to do, I thought it would be really cool to write a letter introducing yourself to the sun. So tell the sun a bit about you, maybe ask some questions to the sun. You can be specific to your chart if you'd like. Is the planet supported or unsupported by the dignity in your chart? What sign and house is the planet in? And with all this information, what questions do you have for the sun? What do you want to tell the sun? How does this planet show up for you in your life? Maybe tell them your thoughts on their journey, like the stories we talked about with the sun's journey, the hero's journey. Maybe talk about reflections you have on the hero's journey and what you think about the sun from those stories. And this would also be a great time to pull a tarot card or an oracle card asking, what can I learn from this planet right now? So what can I learn from the sun?
For being here in the study room with us. We hope you feel a bit more connected to the sun, and we are so excited to get into the moon in the next episode. So whether you are a beginner to astrology or just refreshing on what you already know, we hope you learned something new or had some takeaways.
And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, we'll be posting a few more journal prompts and rituals and study guides to everything that we talked about today, as well as working to build a community of astrology students over on our free Patreon that is linked in the show notes. We also just recently added some donation tiers. No pressure to do these. I'll just say too, the reason why we had picked Patreon was largely because we didn't want to fight with the algorithm. We just kind of wanted to be able to talk directly to other astrology students and not have to worry about going viral or anything like that. So that is why we picked Patreon. That is why the content is free. You don't have to pay us, but if you would like to, I will just be upfront that to run this podcast monthly, we're paying about $65 a month, not including any of our one-time fees.
We appreciate and love you all so much. We are happy to share this. And if you would like to donate, as Jordan said, no pressure, feel free to join on our Patreon. We love you forever. And we'll send like personalized videos to you because we love you.
Yeah, it's so cute.
So next time, like I mentioned, we'd be diving into the moon itself and really getting to know the moon, feel the moon, love the moon. I'm pretty excited for this episode. Yeah. And it'll be kind of like going into a lot of the things we talked about here for the sun. So stay tuned.
This podcast is my practice of asking big questions, uncovering the hidden truths, and creating an accessible space for others to do the same.
And I'm so grateful to be learning alongside Jordan and all of you, sharing our resources and diving into what it means to connect with the cosmos. Thank you for being part of this, and we'll see you back in the study room every other Tuesday.